I tracked down 10 incredible 90s movies Hollywood didn't want you to see. Some of these tanked, some got buried, and one was disowned by its own director. Let's see how many you've actually seen. Jon Favreau and Vince Vaughn made Swingers in 1996 when neither of them was famous. Favreau had just gotten dumped, wrote a script about it, and they shot the movie for basically nothing in LA. Favreau wrote himself as this heartbroken mess trying to get over his ex, and Vaughn played his friend dragging him to parties and trying to get him back out there. The script was sharp, they had chemistry, and for a while it looked like both of them were going to be actual actors instead of just comedy guys. But then Vaughn spent the next decade doing Wedding Crashers and Couples Retreat and all these lazy comedies where he just played the same character. Favreau went off and directed Iron Man and disappeared into Marvel, and Swingers just got left behind. Some people argue it's still the best work either of them has ever done, which is kind of depressing when you think about it. Vaughn even made another breakup movie in 2006 called The Breakup with Jennifer Aniston. That one was garbage. Richard Gere usually plays the good guy. Charming, handsome, on the right side of things, but in Internal Affairs he played Dennis Peck, this completely corrupt LAPD cop who's rotten all the way through. Andy Garcia is the Internal Affairs investigator trying to take him down. Director Mike Figgis, who made Leaving Las Vegas later, shot this like a psychological thriller instead of a typical cop movie. The whole thing is tense. The power keeps shifting between Gere and Garcia, and Gere is genuinely unsettling in it. The Departed stole a lot from Internal Affairs. That movie won Best Picture, made a fortune, everyone remembers it. Internal Affairs just faded away, which is weird because Figgis' film keeps you guessing the whole time and doesn't let up until the end. It wasn't even a bomb or anything, it just came out, did okay, and then got forgotten. Dennis Hopper directed this and then disowned it so hard he took his name off it. The theatrical version is credited to Alan Smithee, which is what directors use when they want nothing to do with the final cut. The studio butchered it, Hopper walked away, and the whole production was a mess. But there's actually something interesting buried in there. Jodie Foster plays an artist who sees a mob hit and has to run. She ends up with this guy Hopper plays who's clearly dangerous and hiding something. The movie can't figure out what tone it wants. Sometimes it's a thriller, sometimes it's almost an erotic thing, it's all over the place. But Foster and Hopper are both so good that it stays watchable even when it's not really working. In anyone else's hands, it would have completely collapsed. The problem was timing. Foster had just done The Accused in 1988, this intense drama that won her an Oscar. So 2 years later, this weird, messy thriller comes out with a fake director name on it, and nobody cared. Hopper eventually released his own version called Backtrack that put his name back on it and restored a bunch of footage. That cut is way better. But by then, it was too late. 1972. A plane carrying a Uruguayan rugby team crashes in the Andes Mountains. The survivors are stranded at over 12,000 feet with no supplies, freezing temperatures, and no rescue coming. Frank Marshall directed a movie about it in 1993 called Alive, starring a young Ethan Hawke. The film didn't bomb exactly, it made its money back, but nobody talks about it anymore. And that's strange because the story itself is absolutely incredible. These people survived for over 2 months in conditions that should have killed them in days. And they had to make a decision that most of us can't even imagine having to make. There was no food. The plane's wreckage had nothing. People were dying from starvation and exposure, so they ate the bodies of the passengers who didn't survive the crash. The story is so unbelievable that while you're watching it, you keep forgetting this actually happened. Real people went through this. In 2023, Netflix made Society of the Snow about the same event, and that film got all this attention and praise, but Alive kind of got erased in the process, like it never existed. Same year, Dominic Sena makes this road movie about a young couple who are touring famous American murder sites for a book. They need to split gas costs, so they pick up 2 hitchhikers, Brad Pitt and Juliette Lewis, except Pitt's character is actually a serial killer, and the couple doesn't realize it until they're already on the road with him. Pitt is absolutely sensational in this. He plays this charming, feral guy who's dangerous in a way that creeps up on you. The film becomes this slow-motion exercise in dread as you watch these characters spiral toward disaster, and there's nothing anyone can do to stop it. Just a year later, Oliver Stone made Natural Born Killers, which also starred Juliette Lewis and covered similar territory. That movie had a Tarantino-written story and got all this attention and controversy. But California is actually the more serious film. It's gritty and disturbing and full of dark irony, and it doesn't have the flashy style that made Natural Born Killers such a spectacle. It holds up now as one of the most unsettling films of the 90s, but you have to know it exists to watch it, and most people don't. Robert Redford directed this drama about the quiz show scandals in the 1950s. Ralph Fiennes plays Charles Van Doren, this handsome, privileged intellectual who becomes the face of a rigged game show. John Turturro plays the working-class contestant who actually knows the answers but gets pushed aside because Van Doren has better ratings appeal. The film is about ethics, media manipulation, how fame corrupts people. It's sharp and intelligent and beautifully made. Redford doesn't go for Oscar bait melodrama, he just tells the story cleanly and lets the themes speak for themselves. Quiz Show was nominated for Best Picture at the Oscars. That same year, so were Forrest Gump, Pulp Fiction, and The Shawshank Redemption. That's probably why Quiz Show falls through the cracks when people talk about great 90s films. It came out in one of the most stacked years in cinema history and got completely overshadowed. So back in 1997, James Mangold was a nobody. This was way before he made Walk the Line or any of those Wolverine movies. He had a script about corrupt cops in New Jersey and he needed a lead. Somehow he convinced Sylvester Stallone to do it, which was a weird choice because Stallone was the action guy. Rocky and Rambo. That's what people knew him for. Mangold wanted him to gain weight and play this half-deaf sheriff that everyone in town treats like he's invisible. The character's quiet and beaten down, not throwing punches or saving the day, just a guy who's been overlooked his whole life finally reaching his limit. And Stallone actually did it. Gained the weight, played it low-key, held his own against Harvey Keitel and Ray Liotta and Robert De Niro. Those guys could eat you alive in a scene if you're not bringing it, but Stallone matched them. The movie came out and people liked it well enough, made some money, got decent reviews, then it just kind of disappeared. You bring up Stallone to anyone today and they think Rocky. Maybe they think Rambo. Almost nobody mentions Copland even though it's probably the best actual acting he's ever done. This one had a premise that sounded gimmicky as hell. Tobey Maguire and Reese Witherspoon play teenagers who get sucked into a 1950s black and white sitcom. Everything's perfect, everyone's happy, nothing ever goes wrong. And then these two modern kids start changing things. They introduce sex and rebellion and free thought, and the world literally starts turning to color. Sounds like a one-joke movie that would run out of steam in 20 minutes, right? Except it didn't. By the end, you're watching people actually fight over whether their world should stay black and white or embrace color, and somehow the movie made you care. It built real emotional weight out of what could have just been a visual trick. But Pleasantville didn't become a classic or anything. People saw it, thought it was interesting, and then just moved on. Warren Beatty made a movie where he plays a senator who hires a hitman to kill him, and then while he's waiting to die, he goes on the campaign trail and just stops bullshitting. Starts telling the actual truth about race and money and how politics really works. Beatty went all in on the craziness and somehow it works. His character's completely given up, figures he's about to die anyway, so why keep lying? And once he stops playing the game, he becomes the most honest politician in the room, which makes him dangerous. The stuff the movie's saying about American politics, all of that actually got more relevant over time. Politics just kept getting more theatrical and absurd after 1998, and Bulworth was already pointing at where things were headed. Alexander Payne's made a bunch of great movies since this one. Sideways, The Descendants, The Holdovers. He's established himself as one of the best directors out there, but Election might still be his best. Matthew Broderick plays a high school teacher who goes to war with an overachieving student over a student council election. Reese Witherspoon plays the student. And the way these people treat this high school election, you'd think they were fighting for the presidency. The stakes feel massive even though it's completely meaningless. The movie uses voiceover to get inside their heads, and you watch both of them rationalize doing increasingly shitty things to win. Broderick's not playing the charming slacker from Ferris Bueller here. He's petty and vindictive and can't stand that this teenage girl is smarter than him. Witherspoon's character is this overachiever who will destroy anyone in her path, and the movie doesn't let either of them be the hero. Payne and his co-writer got an Oscar nomination for the screenplay. The movie got good reviews when it came out, but it never became the cultural thing it probably should have.